The stars glimmered like scattered diamonds across the black canvas of space. Among them, a small silver ship drifted silently toward the distant planet of Virelia. Inside, Ambassador Lyra Voss sat quietly, her crystal-like eyes reflecting the endless expanse outside. She had been traveling for weeks, yet the wonder of the universe never left her. Lyra had seen many worlds, many civilizations, yet none had captured her imagination like the humans. Their history was old, marked by struggle and survival. Yet in the current era, humans had transcended all of it. They had chosen peace. They had chosen reason over rage, diplomacy over destruction, and kindness over cruelty. She remembered the tales of the Galaxy Council, how humans had once been fierce fighters, able to topple entire armies with strategy and courage. But those stories were always in the past tense, like legends about extinct birds or long-frozen mountains. In the present, humans were diplomats, scholars, and teachers. Lyra had spent months preparing to meet one. She expected calm intelligence, gentle wisdom, and a soft voice carrying reason like a melody. The door to the ship's observation deck opened with a soft hiss. Elias Ward stepped in. Tall, with broad shoulders and steady posture, he carried himself with quiet confidence. His eyes, deep and thoughtful, met hers. He smiled gently, and Lyra felt a strange shiver of admiration. He looked exactly as the stories described, a human of great peace and calm, a living testament to the promise of his species. "Lyra Voss," he said, his voice warm and measured. "It's an honor to meet you." "The honor is mine, Ambassador Ward," she replied, curtsying slightly. "I have studied your people for many years. I know of your history, your great achievements, and your choices." Elias nodded, his gaze calm. "And I have studied yours. Your people are remarkable as well. I am glad we can finally meet face to face." Lyra's heart beat faster. She had seen humans in many holographic recordings, but meeting one in person was entirely different. There was something about his presence, a kind of quiet gravity, as if the air itself bent slightly around him. She had never seen another being like it. They spoke for hours as the ship descended toward Virelia. Elias explained the subtle philosophy of human governance, their methods of conflict resolution, and their dedication to ensuring no single individual or group could dominate through fear. Lyra listened, enraptured, taking notes on the nuances that no reports could ever convey. "You truly believe humans can maintain peace forever?" she asked finally as the planet's surface grew larger beneath them. Elias's smile was soft, but his eyes carried depth. "We have learned from our history. We know the cost of violence, but we also know that it is not forgotten. We remember what we are capable of, so we can choose differently. That is why peace is more than a policy for us. It is a choice renewed every day." Lyra nodded slowly, absorbing the weight of his words. She had studied many civilizations, but none had combined memory, restraint, and potential like humans. Their restraint was not weakness. It was strength, refined through centuries of understanding and wisdom. The ship landed on Virelia in the late afternoon, the sky painted with lavender clouds and two small suns casting soft golden light across the crystalline city below. The Virelian capital was unlike anything on Earth. Towers shimmered like prisms, reflecting the sun's rays in dazzling patterns. Bridges made of transparent crystal arched across wide canals, and flying vehicles traced glowing trails through the air. It was beautiful, almost magical, yet Lyra could feel an undercurrent of tension. Virelia was a world used to power, and they had never seen humans in combat, nor had they expected to. They disembarked, greeted by the Virelian Council. Lyra introduced Elias as a representative of humanity, a diplomat of the greatest peaceful race in the galaxy. The council members bowed respectfully, curious but cautious. They had dealt with humans before in trade and diplomacy, but never in person. Elias bowed politely, his eyes scanning the room. "It is a pleasure to meet all of you," he said softly, yet his voice carried enough strength to fill the chamber. As the meeting began, Lyra watched Elias carefully. He spoke with measured words, never raising his voice, never showing anger, never allowing a hint of fear to touch him. Even when a council member questioned humanity's ability to remain peaceful in the face of conflict, Elias answered with patience and clarity, citing centuries of careful governance, education, and tradition. After hours of discussion, the council adjourned, leaving Lyra and Elias alone in the grand hall. She turned to him, curiosity and admiration mixing in her gaze. "You truly are what the legends say, she whispered. Peaceful, wise, and calm beyond belief. I almost cannot imagine what you must have been like before humans chose peace. Elias's expression softened, and he looked toward the towering windows that framed the twin suns. I imagine it sometimes, he said quietly. But peace is more important than remembering what we were. Still, we never forget entirely. The past is always with us, in memory and in practice. That is why humanity remains vigilant, not in preparation for war, but to ensure peace lasts. Lyra felt a chill run down her spine. There was truth in his word, a quiet, unspoken warning. Humans had changed, yes, but they remembered. Their peace was not naivety. It was deliberate. And in that deliberate choice, there was power. As the evening sun dipped below the horizon, painting the crystalline towers with shades of rose and gold, Lyra realized something profound. Humans had indeed forgotten the cruelty of war, but they had not forgotten the strength it demanded. Their history, their memory, and their choices had crafted a species that could face violence and yet remain above it. She felt pride for them, and for the first time, a small unease. There was a power in remembering what humans could do, and it was not a power she had ever witnessed in anyone else. Elias glanced at her, reading her thoughts. Do not be afraid, he said quietly. Remembering does not mean we will use it without reason. Peace is our choice always. But if the choice is challenged, then we act, with purpose, with discipline, and without malice. That is the human way. Lyra nodded, feeling both awe and relief. She had traveled far to see humans up close, and now she understood why stories of their past deeds had inspired generations. Humanity's greatness was not in the absence of violence, but in the control of it, the conscious decision to choose peace when they could have chosen otherwise. The twin suns finally set, leaving the city glowing under the gentle light of Virelia's moons. The air was cool, and the crystalline towers reflected the soft moonlight like a million tiny stars. Lyra and Elias walked through the quiet streets, discussing not only politics but philosophy, ethics, and the responsibilities that came with power. Lyra realized that Elias's presence was more than a diplomatic formality. He was a living symbol of what humans had become. Calm, strong, and measured, yet capable of far more than anyone could imagine. His every word, every gesture, carried the weight of history and the hope of the future. As they approached the human delegation's quarters, Lyra could not help but look at him one last time. Humans have truly changed the galaxy, she whispered. And yet, I sense there is more to you than what meets the eye. Elias only smiled quietly. Perhaps, he said. But for now, let us rest. The galaxy will continue to challenge us tomorrow, as it always does, and we must be ready, with peace first and with strength only if needed. That night, Lyra lay in her quarters, staring at the ceiling and thinking of humans. She had admired them from afar, studied their history, and believed in their peaceful nature. But now, having met Elias Ward, she understood a deeper truth. Humans had chosen peace, yes, but they remembered everything else, the strength, the discipline, the resolve. Peace was not weakness. It was preparation. It was mastery. Somewhere in the quiet of space, among the stars, humanity was alive, alert, and waiting. Not for war, not for conquest, but to protect what they had chosen. And Lyra realized, with a mixture of awe and unease, that if humanity ever drew its strength again, it would be with purpose, precision, and an unmatched mastery that few in the galaxy could ever comprehend. The night passed quietly over Virelia, the twin moons casting soft silver light over the crystalline towers, and while the galaxy slept, Lyra understood that she had witnessed something extraordinary. Humans had indeed forgotten violence in their daily lives, yet they had not forgotten what it meant to be strong. And in that quiet, unspoken memory, there was power beyond imagination. The era of peace had begun, but its foundation rested on something far older, far deeper than most would ever see. And Lyra Voss for the first time felt that awe, and perhaps a hint of fear, that humans were not just gentle, they were prepared. The calm of the Virelian capital did not last long. Just days after Lyra and Elias had begun their diplomatic mission, an urgent alert echoed throughout the crystalline city. Red lights flashed across towers, and the soft hum of energy fields turned into a low, urgent vibration. The Galaxy Council outpost on the planet Karsus 9, where humans, Virelians, and other species coordinated frontier peacekeeping, had sent a distress signal. Lyra and Elias were in a small council chamber when the warning arrived. The holographic display showed the frontier planet under attack. Small explosions lit the atmosphere, and the shapes of unfamiliar ships moved aggressively across the sky. They call themselves the Tarkith Dominion, a Virelian officer explained, his voice tight with tension. They have never attacked a council world before. They are relentless, and they seem to be aiming at the humans. Lyra's eyes widened. The humans? Why? The officer shrugged. Perhaps they think humans are weak now. They say humans have forgotten violence, that they can be easily defeated. They do not know. Apparently none of them do. Elias remained calm, his expression unreadable. He moved closer to the window, watching the holographic sky. No one should underestimate humanity, he said quietly. His voice carried weight, though soft, and Lyra felt an unease she could not explain. The council immediately organized a response team. Despite the Virelians' advanced technology, their fleets were few and the Tarkith ships were numerous. Lyra watched as human and Virelian officers coordinated evacuation plans, shield reinforcement, and communication protocols. Yet even in the urgency, Elias moved with a strange serenity, as if he already knew what needed to be done. They believe peace makes us weak, he said, almost to himself. They are wrong. Lyra followed him to the observation deck. Together they watched the Tarkith fleet descend. Hundreds of sleek black ships, unlike any she had ever seen, blotted out portions of the sky. Their engines left trails of violet energy, and their weapons glimmered like ominous stars. Lyra could feel the tension in the air, a weight pressing down on everyone below. Evacuation is in progress, said a Virelian officer, his voice tight. But the Tarkith are fast. They are already breaching the outer shields. Lyra swallowed hard. She had seen battles before, simulations, training exercises, even recorded histories, but never anything like this. The Tarkith Dominion did not negotiate. They did not pause. They came to take. And now the humans, famed across the galaxy for their peaceful nature, were in the path of this relentless force. Elias did not move to the command consoles. Instead, he approached a small metallic case strapped to his side. Lyra noticed it for the first time. It was always with him, yet he never opened it during discussions or ceremonies. Now he rested his hand on it almost reverently. Is that a weapon? She asked cautiously, her voice barely above a whisper. Elias shook his head. No, not yet. It is a reminder. His gaze returned to the holographic sky where the Tarkith ships drew closer. We do not seek violence, but we do not run from it when it threatens peace. The first explosions rocked the city. Shields flickered and groaned under the attack. The air smelled faintly of ozone, and a low rumble traveled through the floors of the council chamber. Lyra felt her heart race. For the first time, she realized the difference between theoretical stories of human strength and the actual moment when it was tested. Outside, the Tarkith soldiers began landing. They descended in sleek pods, their movements precise and coordinated. Lyra watched as Virelian security forces engaged them, energy pulses flashing in defensive patterns. Despite the Virelian skill, the Tarkith advanced quickly, their armor and tactics seeming almost unstoppable. Lyra turned to Elias, expecting fear, hesitation, or a plea for diplomacy. But he only stood quietly, his hand tightening on the metallic case. There was no panic, no anger, only calm focus. They think humans have forgotten the way of battle, he murmured. They do not know that strength is not lost when peace is chosen. It is remembered. A Virelian officer ran toward them. Ambassador Ward. We need your input. The outer perimeter is failing. Elias did not respond immediately. Instead, he looked at the approaching enemy, observing, calculating. Lyra noticed how his eyes flicked across every detail. Their formations, their movements, even the small variations in their landing approach. It was not fear or aggression. It was awareness. Lyra felt a flicker of unease. Humans were supposed to be peaceful. But what she saw in Elias now suggested something else. A readiness that had not been lost, only carefully hidden. The first group of Tarkith soldiers reached the council grounds. Energy pulses lit the sky as defensive systems tried to hold them back. Yet the attackers moved forward with shocking precision. One of the Virelian officers shouted commands, but the situation was deteriorating fast. Lyra grabbed Elias's arm. We need to leave. The shields won't hold. He looked down at her calmly. Leaving is not always the answer. He opened the metallic case. The faint glow of a dark shining blade emerged. Lyra gasped. It pulsed with a strange, almost alive light, casting reflections that danced across the walls. She stared at him in disbelief. You humans don't fight anymore. Why now? Elias did not answer with words. He stepped forward, the sword humming softly in his hands. His movements were measured, precise, almost ritualistic. The Tarkith soldiers froze as he approached, sensing something they could not understand. Lyra watched, heart pounding, as Elias moved among them. He did not attack recklessly. He did not shout or charge with anger. Each motion was purposeful, defensive, and almost elegant. The Tarkith soldiers, bred for aggression, faltered against the disciplined skill of one human. Calm, deliberate, and unafraid, the city held its breath. Even the Virelians stopped to watch. The legend of human warriors had been taught for centuries, but no one had believed it still held truth. Now there it was, embodied in Elias, standing alone yet commanding the space around him. Minutes passed, though it felt like hours. The Tarkith troops began to retreat, confused and unsettled. The humans and Virelians regrouped, strengthening shields and securing critical areas. Yet the tension remained. Everyone knew that this was only the beginning. Lyra turned to Elias, her voice trembling. I didn't know humans could do this anymore. Elias lowered the blade slowly, returning it to its case. His movements were calm, almost serene. We do not fight for conquest. We fight for peace. That is the difference. And now you understand why the galaxy must never underestimate humanity. Lyra nodded, overwhelmed. She had admired humans for their wisdom and diplomacy, but witnessing their potential firsthand changed everything. The peaceful image she had carried for so long now included a layer of quiet, disciplined power, a strength that could protect peace without malice. The night settled over Karsus 9, the explosions fading into distant echoes. Lyra walked beside Elias, thinking about the stories she would tell once she returned home. The galaxy had always believed that humans had forgotten violence, that their era of peace was fragile, but she now knew the truth. Humans had remembered everything, and that memory was what made their peace real and unbreakable. Elias paused at the edge of the council compound, looking at the stars above. Peace is not passive, he said softly. It requires awareness, discipline, and when needed, the courage to act. Humans learned that long ago, and we carry it forward silently so others can live without fear. Lyra watched him awed and unsettled. She had expected a gentle diplomat, a soft voice in a quiet room. Instead, she saw a human fully prepared, not for war but for protection. The distinction was subtle yet profound. Humans did not crave conflict, yet they were never defenseless. That night, as Lyra returned to her quarters, she could still hear the faint hum of the blade in Elias's case. It was not a threat, she realized. It was a reminder, a symbol of what humans had been and what they still carried in silence. The stars of Karsus 9 shone brightly, reflecting in the quiet waters of the city. The Tarkith dominion had been driven back, but the message had been clear. Humanity's era of peace was not weakness. It was vigilance, wisdom, and quiet power. Lyra lay awake, thinking of the day's events. She had come expecting diplomacy, discussions, and perhaps minor tensions. Instead, she had witnessed something legendary, the strength of a human when the galaxy believed their violence was forgotten. For the first time, she understood that peace was not a shield, but a choice supported by knowledge, discipline, and readiness. Humanity had chosen this path deliberately, and the galaxy, she realized, was fortunate that they had. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight, under the twin moons of Karsus 9, Lyra Voss understood the depth of human strength and the quiet pride that came from remembering what others had long forgotten. The dawn over Karsus 9 was soft and pale, painting the battered city in shades of silver and light blue. Smoke rose from the outskirts of the council outpost, mingling with the morning mist like a ghost of the night's chaos. The Tarkith dominion had retreated, but the silence that followed was heavy with tension. No one knew if they would return. Lyra Voss walked alongside Elias through the wide streets of the city. The crystalline buildings bore marks of the skirmish, small scorch marks and cracked energy panels. But life continued around them. Civilians, Beryllian engineers and human volunteers moved swiftly, repairing systems and ensuring that the city remained operational. Despite the damage, a quiet resilience hung in the air. Lyra's gaze kept returning to Elias. He walked with calm purpose, unaffected by the chaos. But what caught her attention most was the small metallic case he carried at his side. She had seen it the night before, had seen him reveal it to wield a weapon with unmatched precision and skill, and yet he did not carry it now as a trophy or as a threat. It rested quietly against his side as if it had a life of its own. "Why carry it at all?" she asked, curiosity laced with lingering awe. "Why not leave it locked away, hidden from the galaxy?" Elias glanced at her, his eyes thoughtful. "Because it is more than a weapon," he said. "It is a reminder. Humanity does not forget what it once was. We remember, and by remembering we choose what to become." Lyra pondered this as they entered a large hall, once the council's ceremonial chamber. The walls shimmered with crystalline panels that reflected the pale morning light, casting patterns that danced across the floor. The hall had been used for centuries to honor the galaxy's greatest achievements. Today it would bear witness to a story far older than the city itself. Elias placed the metallic case on a raised platform in the center of the hall. With careful, deliberate movements, he unlocked it. The case opened with a soft hiss, revealing the blade that had so startled Lyra the night before. The sword was extraordinary. Its edge shimmered with a dark metallic glow that seemed almost alive. Strange symbols ran along its length, glowing faintly like tiny constellations. It was elegant yet formidable, beautiful yet purposeful. Lyra felt a chill as she stared at it. "It is incredible," she whispered. "What is it?" Elias took the sword in his hands, holding it as if it were an extension of his own body. "This is the last blade," he said softly. "Forged long before the Age of Peace, when humanity knew only war and struggle. It is not meant to conquer. It is meant to protect, to remind us of what we once were, and what we can never become again." Lyra stepped closer, curiosity mingled with awe. "But why keep it hidden? Why not display it like a symbol?" Elias's eyes held a distant sadness. "Because power is dangerous when displayed. The galaxy must know peace comes from choice, not fear. This blade is a memory, a teacher, a warning only when it is truly needed. It is not a show of strength. It is a promise that we remember, and that we will act if peace is threatened." Lyra nodded slowly. The weight of his words pressed upon her. The humans she had studied were known for diplomacy, negotiation, and wisdom. Yet here, in this quiet hall, she understood that beneath that calm surface lay a depth of discipline and skill that few could comprehend. Humanity had not abandoned its past. It had learned from it, refined it, and mastered it in ways that were invisible until necessity demanded. "Tell me its history," Lyra said, eager to understand. "I want to know why it exists, Maud, and why you are its keeper." Elias adjusted his grip, the sword humming faintly. "Long ago, humans fought endless wars. Entire worlds were destroyed, countless lives lost, all because we did not know restraint. When the Age of Peace came, we swore to remember every lesson, every mistake. The last blade was forged during that time, to serve as a reminder and as a shield when remembrance alone was not enough." He paused, his gaze distant. "Not every human trains with it. Only a few are chosen in each generation, those who are trusted to carry the responsibility without succumbing to pride or desire. They are called keepers. I'm one of them." Lyra's eyes widened. "So the humans who seem gentle, they are capable of this?" Elias nodded. "We are capable, but we do not seek conflict. We train so that if conflict comes to us, we can end it quickly, decisively, and without malice. Strength is not in anger. Strength is in control." Lyra felt a mixture of admiration and unease. She had believed in human peace. She had celebrated it, but now she realized that peace had been chosen deliberately and backed by power that the galaxy had forgotten. "Can you show me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Elias hesitated for a moment, then nodded. He stepped into the center of the hall, holding the last blade with a steady grip. With movements precise and controlled, he performed a series of motions that seemed both martial and graceful. Each step was calculated, each swing deliberate. There was no rage, no malice, only purpose and discipline. Lyra watched, mesmerized. The blade moved with him as if it were alive, responding to his intent without hesitation. The hum of the metal filled the hall, vibrating through her bones. Even the faint light of the twin suns outside seemed to dance in response to its energy. When he stopped, the sword rested in his hands, still and quiet. Lyra exhaled slowly. "It is beautiful and terrifying," Elias smiled faintly. "It is not meant to frighten. It is meant to teach. Humanity has learned that remembering power is safer than forgetting it. We do not seek to harm others, but if harm comes, we will meet it with skill, not anger. That is our promise to the galaxy." Lyra stepped closer, her gaze lingering on the symbols etched along the blade. "These markings, what do they mean?" "They are reminders of humanity's history," Elias explained. "Each symbol represents a lesson, a choice, or a value. They remind the Keeper why the blade exists, why we must never forget, and why we must always protect peace." For a long moment, Lyra remained silent, absorbing the weight of his words. The last blade was not just a weapon. It was a bridge between the past and the present, a tangible representation of humanity's journey from chaos to wisdom. "You have carried this alone?" she asked finally. Elias nodded. "It is a burden as much as it is a gift. To carry knowledge of what humans once were, to carry the responsibility to act when needed, is not simple. But it is necessary. Peace is fragile, even for humans. We remember so that we can maintain it without fear." Lyra looked at him, awe mixing with understanding. She had believed in human greatness before, but now she truly understood it. The humans' peace was not naive. It was deliberate. It was strengthened by the mastery of what they could do if they had to. "Elias," she said softly, "the Tarkith, they do not know this. They think humans are defenseless. They are wrong," he replied calmly, "and they will learn if they challenge the peace we have built. But I hope they will not need to. Remembering is enough most of the time." Outside the hall, the city continued to rebuild. Lyra could hear the faint hum of engines, the chatter of engineers, and the voices of civilians returning to their routines. Yet the events of the previous night lingered in her mind. The Tarkith had come seeking easy victory, believing humanity had lost its edge. What they found instead was a keeper of the last blade, a reminder that humans had chosen peace with full knowledge of what they could do. Elias returned the blade to its case with care, sealing it so that its hum faded into silence. He stood, calm and composed, yet Lyra could see the weight of responsibility in his posture. He carried not just a weapon, but centuries of human history, discipline, and wisdom. "I understand now," she said quietly. "Humans have not forgotten violence. They have remembered it, and in remembering they have mastered it. That is why peace is possible." Elias looked at her, eyes steady and gentle. "Yes, peace is not the absence of strength. Peace is the choice to use strength wisely. That is the path we have chosen, and that is what makes humanity different." Lyra felt a deep respect rising in her chest. She had studied humans, admired them, and now she realized she had underestimated the depth of their commitment, the precision of their mastery, and the wisdom of their restraint. Humanity was not just peaceful, it was vigilant, aware, and capable in ways the galaxy had long forgotten. As they left the hall, the first light of dawn touched the city, glinting off the repaired crystalline towers. Lyra glanced back at the sealed case, humming faintly with a quiet energy. It was a symbol of humanity's choice, a promise of protection, and a reminder of what lay beneath their calm exterior. In that moment, Lyra understood something profound. Humans were not merely peaceful. They were prepared. And the galaxy, whether it knew it or not, owed much of its safety to the quiet vigilance of those who carried the knowledge of what humans could be. The last blade remained silent once more, resting quietly in its case. But its presence and the keeper who bore it would not be forgotten, not by Lyra, not by the galaxy, and certainly not by those who thought humans had lost their edge. The city of Karsus Nime had quieted after the chaos of the Tarkith attack. Streets that had been filled with alarms, flashing lights, and the hurried steps of council officials were now calm, almost eerily so. Repairs continued and citizens returned to their daily routines, but the memory of the attack lingered. Everyone could feel it, the reminder that peace, while cherished, could be fragile. Lyra Voss walked alongside Elias through the heart of the city. The morning air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of energy fields and ozone from the damaged shield systems. Crystalline buildings glimmered in the sunlight, repaired panels reflecting rays of gold and silver. Yet Lyra's attention was not on the city. It was on Elias, the calm human who had faced the Tarkith Dominion with a single sword, showing a skill and discipline that had left the galaxy questioning everything it thought it knew about humans. "Elias," Lyra began cautiously, her voice breaking the silence between them. "I still don't understand fully. How can humans carry such strength, such knowledge, and yet live in peace without ever using it?" Elias looked at her, his expression thoughtful. "It is not simple," he said. "Humanity has lived through centuries of war. We have known loss, failure, and despair, but we have also learned from it. Every battle, every choice, every mistake, and it has shaped who we are today. Strength without control is danger. Peace without awareness is fragile. The last blade is a symbol of both." Lyra paused, absorbing his words. She had seen the blade in action and she had felt its presence. It was more than a weapon. It carried history, discipline, and memory. But what Elias said made her realize it was also a philosophy, a living idea that guided every human who chose to wield it. Elias led her to a quiet hall within the council compound. The room was simple, devoid of decoration, yet the atmosphere felt weighty, almost sacred. He placed the metallic case on a low pedestal, and Lyra's eyes were drawn again to the glowing symbols etched along the sword's length. "Tell me its story," she said softly. "I want to understand why humans continue to protect it, why someone like you carries it, and why it still matters today." Elias's gaze lingered on the blade. "Long ago, humanity was divided by conflict. Entire worlds were scarred by war and countless lives were lost. We were strong, yes, but without wisdom. We fought for reasons that often seemed important at the time, yet many were trivial or fleeting. We learned the hard way that strength without understanding is dangerous." Lyra listened intently, imagining a past she had only known from books and holograms. She had read about human wars, about their rise from chaos to civilization, but hearing it in Elias's calm voice made it real. "When the Age of Peace began," he continued, "humanity swore two promises. First, that we would never forget what it means to be powerful, to be capable of destruction. Second, that we would choose peace deliberately every day. These promises were not easy. They required discipline, training, and awareness that even now most species do not understand." Lyra's eyes widened. "So the last blade? It is more than a weapon. It is a reminder of those promises?" Elias nodded. "Exactly. The last blade is entrusted to a keeper, one chosen carefully in each generation. The keeper carries not just the weapon, but the memory of all humanity's past struggles. The responsibility is enormous. We train, we prepare, and we remain vigilant, not to dominate, not to fight for power, but to ensure that peace is preserved and that humanity never forgets what it is capable of." Lyra took a deep breath. "And that is why you were able to face the Tarkith soldiers last night. Without anger, without malice, and yet with perfect skill." "Yes," Elias replied quietly. "I did not fight for revenge nor for pride. I fought because peace was under threat. The blade guided my actions, yes, but my control, discipline, and training allowed me to act without losing myself to the impulse for destruction. That is the human way, not the absence of strength, but the mastery of it." Lyra felt a shiver run down her spine. She had studied humans for years, yet nothing had prepared her for this. Humans were celebrated across the galaxy as peaceful and diplomatic. Many believed their ability to maintain calm was their greatest strength. But now she realized it was only part of the truth. The full measure of their greatness lay not in what they had given up, but in what they remembered, and in how deliberately they chose to act. Elias placed the sword back into its case with reverence, closing it with a soft click. The faint hum faded into silence. "This is why humanity remains peaceful," he said. "We remember so we can choose wisely, and if the choice of peace is challenged, we act decisively, precisely, and without hatred. That is the path we have walked for generations." Lyra studied him, her mind racing. She had expected to meet a diplomat, a human who embodied the legends of calm wisdom. Instead, she had encountered something far greater, a keeper of memory, discipline, and potential. The sword was not just a weapon, it was a link between past and present, between knowledge and action. And Elias, by carrying it, was a living bridge between those worlds. "Humans are truly remarkable," she said softly. "I believed in your peace before, but now I understand the depth of it. It is not naive. It is deliberate. It is strengthened by knowing exactly what you can do, and choosing not to use it unless necessary." Elias nodded, a faint smile on his lips. Many misunderstand our peace, he said. They think it comes from weakness or fear. But it comes from awareness, mastery, and discipline. We remember violence not to glorify it, but to control it. And by controlling it, we can create a world where peace is possible. Lyra walked closer to the pedestal, staring at the closed case. And the galaxy believes humans are harmless now, she said. They do not see the Keepers, the training, or the last blade. They see only peace. Precisely, Elias said. That is why it works. The galaxy believes peace is easy for humans. It is not, it is hard. It is deliberate. And that is why humanity has endured. Why we continue to grow and why we can face threats like the Tarkith Dominion without losing ourselves. Lyra thought about the attack from the night before. The Tarkith soldiers had been confident, ruthless, and unafraid. And yet one human had changed everything, not with brute force, but with discipline, control, and the quiet authority that came from understanding centuries of history. You carry a heavy burden, she said softly. I cannot imagine what it is like to bear the weight of all humanity's past mistakes and all its future responsibilities on your shoulders. Elias's eyes held a distant calm. It is not easy, he admitted, but it is necessary. Humanity chose this path knowing that strength must be remembered, not forgotten. The blade, the training, the vigilance, and it is not for glory. It is for responsibility, for protection, for the promise of peace. Lyra nodded, feeling a deep respect growing within her. She had admired humans before, but now she understood the full scope of their greatness. It was not just in their diplomacy or their ability to negotiate. It was in their mastery of themselves, their choices, and their potential. Peace was not simple. It was the result of centuries of awareness, discipline, and preparation. Outside, the city of Karsus 9 shone under the light of its twin suns. The streets were calm. Citizens moved with purpose, and life continued. But beneath that calm surface lay a quiet truth that few in the galaxy could fully grasp. Humans had not forgotten violence. They remembered it. They carried it with them. And because of that memory, they could choose peace every day, with clarity, wisdom, and strength. Lyra turned to Elias, her gaze steady. I understand now, she said. Humanity's peace is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of wisdom, and it is supported by the strength of those who remember, like you. Elias nodded. Yes, we remember so we can act when needed. Not for conquest, not for revenge, but to protect what we have chosen. That is the weight of history, and it is why humans endure, why we thrive, and why the galaxy can rely on us when it matters most. Lyra felt a mixture of awe and humility. She had seen great civilizations before, and she had studied countless species. But humans were unlike any other. They had chosen peace in the shadow of their own strength. They had mastered violence not to wield it carelessly, but to ensure it would never need to be wielded. As they left the hall, Lyra glanced at the sealed case one last time. The faint hum of the last blade seemed to linger in her mind, a reminder of everything she had learned. Humans had not forgotten their past. They had embraced it, learned from it, and used it to shape a future where peace could exist. And that, she realized, was a power far greater than any weapon the galaxy had ever known. Walking through the quiet streets of Karsus 9, Lyra understood something profound. Humans were not simply peaceful diplomats. They were keepers of history, of discipline, and of potential. And in that vigilance, they carried the true weight of the galaxy's hope for a lasting peace. The last blade rested quietly once more, hidden in its case. But its presence and the keeper who bore it had changed everything for Lyra. She would never see humans the same way again. They were not just peaceful. They were prepared, and that preparation, that memory, and that choice made them extraordinary. The galaxy watched in stunned silence. News of the Tarkith Dominion's retreat from Karsus 9 spread quickly, carried by fleets of messenger ships, communication relays, and holographic broadcasts. Across distant planets and space stations, diplomats and citizens alike whispered about what had happened. They spoke of a human, Elias Ward, who had faced a deadly enemy with nothing but a single sword, moving with precision, discipline, and calm mastery. Lyra Voss watched the transmissions from her quarters on Virelia, her crystal-like eyes reflecting the images of the battle. She had seen humans fight before, in simulations and history holovids, but nothing compared to the reality of Elias's actions. The galaxy had underestimated humanity, assuming that 5 centuries of peace had left them defenseless. Yet one keeper had reminded everyone why humans deserved their reputation, not only for wisdom and diplomacy but also for skill, discipline, and the quiet strength of remembrance. She thought of the last blade, the glowing symbols and the calm presence of Elias. That night, he had faced chaos without malice, without anger, only with purpose. The galaxy had feared human weakness. Now they had witnessed something far more profound: humanity's mastery of themselves and of their potential for violence. Used only when necessary, the council summoned Elias and Lyra for a special session. The chamber was vast, the walls adorned with the insignias of countless civilizations. Holoscreens showed images of the Tarkith fleet, retreating in confusion and disbelief. Diplomats from dozens of species were present, each waiting to hear the explanation of what had occurred. Elias entered the chamber calmly, the last blade safely sealed in its case. His presence commanded attention, yet he did not demand it. He moved with ease, acknowledging the council members with a polite nod. Lyra followed, aware of the weight of history that accompanied him. A Virelian counselor spoke first, her tone a mixture of awe and incredulity. Ambassador Ward, the Tarkith Dominion claims to have defeated all opposing forces across this sector, and yet a single human with one weapon. They retreated. How is this possible? Elias responded calmly, his voice steady. They were mistaken in believing humanity had forgotten strength. Humans remember. We have trained, studied, and preserved the lessons of our past. The last blade is not just a weapon. It is a symbol of memory and discipline. It ensures that peace is maintained, not through fear but through preparedness. When peace is threatened, humanity acts with precision, skill, and responsibility. A murmur ran through the chamber. Many council members had heard of humans' past wars, but few believed that their descendants could still wield such mastery. The Tarkith Dominion had assumed that peace had made humans soft. Elias had proven otherwise. Lyra stepped forward, her voice steady but filled with conviction. I have observed humanity for years. I have studied their history, their choices, and their philosophy. But I can say now with certainty that humans are not merely peaceful by chance. Their peace is deliberate. It is chosen every day, backed by discipline, training, and memory. That is why what happened on Karsis Nime is not just remarkable. It is proof of humanity's greatness. The chamber was silent, the weight of her words settling like dust in sunlight. Humans were not merely survivors or negotiators. They were guardians, keepers of a past that could have destroyed them, and yet they had mastered it to preserve peace. One counselor, a tall being from the icy planet of Varnus, leaned forward. Ambassador Ward, will humanity continue to carry the last blade openly? Will other keepers be revealed to the galaxy? Elias shook his head. No. The keepers are chosen quietly, trained carefully, and kept hidden to preserve the balance. The galaxy benefits from our peace, and it must not fear our strength. The last blade is a tool, a teacher, and a reminder, not a weapon for display or dominance. Humanity acts when necessary, but only when necessary. That is the principle we follow, and it has served us well for centuries. A gentle hum of acknowledgement filled the room. The galaxy had seen many civilizations wield power openly, using intimidation or conquest to maintain control. Humanity was different. They had mastered the invisible strength of restraint, and that mastery now had become legend. Outside the council chamber, Lyra and Elias walked through the streets of Virelia. Citizens paused to observe them, curious whispers filling the air. Yet there was no fear. Humans were known for diplomacy, for kindness, for wisdom. Now there was something more, a quiet respect for the unseen strength of humanity. Do you ever tire of carrying the last blade? Lyra asked, her curiosity genuine. Elias considered her question carefully. It is a responsibility, yes, but it is not a burden in the way most think. It reminds me of our history, our mistakes, and the choices we have made. It reminds me that peace is not passive. It is deliberate, and it must be protected. That is not tiring, and it is necessary. Lyra nodded. She understood now that the true strength of humans was not in fighting, but in remembering, choosing, and preparing. Their peace was built on knowledge, discipline, and a commitment to ensure that chaos would not take them unprepared. News of the Tarkith retreat spread further, reaching distant star systems. Across the galaxy, species that had once doubted humans now reconsidered their assumptions. Humans were no longer seen as merely peaceful negotiators. They were guardians of peace, keepers of history, and masters of skill they had chosen not to use recklessly. Lyra recorded her observations carefully. Her reports would tell the truth. Humanity's peace was deliberate, their power remembered, and their choices disciplined. They did not need to display strength to maintain it. They merely needed to exist, aware and prepared. And the galaxy would understand that human peace was backed by mastery. Elias returned to his quarters, placing the last blade in its secure case. The hum faded, and for a moment all was quiet. The galaxy slept, or at least moved forward, unaware of the depth of humanity's vigilance. Yet the sword remained, a silent reminder that peace was earned, maintained, and defended, sometimes unseen, always ready. Lyra looked out of her window at the stars. The universe was vast, full of civilizations, conflicts, and endless possibilities. And somewhere in the quiet of humanity, there was a force the galaxy had often underestimated. Humans had chosen peace, yet they remembered everything else. Their calm exterior masked centuries of knowledge, training, and mastery. And that choice, she realized, was their true power. Weeks later, Lyra returned to Virelia to give her official report. She spoke to the council, detailing the events of Karsus 9, the skills of Elias Ward, and the philosophy of human keepers. Her words were careful, measured, but full of admiration. She described a species that had mastered itself, remembered its past, and acted not for conquest, but for protection. Her report became legendary. Scholars, diplomats, and citizens across the galaxy studied it, learning what they had overlooked. Humanity's greatness lay not only in their diplomacy, wisdom, and innovation, but in the deliberate choice to maintain peace, backed by knowledge and skill that few could imagine. And somewhere on a quiet, distant Earth, the last blade rested once more. It was not a weapon of aggression nor a symbol of fear. It was a reminder of what humans had been, what they could be, and why they had chosen peace. It hummed faintly, a quiet echo of centuries of history, discipline, and vigilance. Lyra often thought back to her time with Elias, remembering his calm presence, his discipline, and the way he had faced chaos with purpose. She understood now why humans were celebrated, why they had endured, and why the galaxy could trust them to maintain peace. They were not perfect, they were not invincible. But they had mastered something far more powerful than weapons or fleets. They had mastered themselves. In the quiet of the night, under the light of distant stars, Lyra wrote her final note in her report. They say humans have forgotten violence. They are wrong. Humans remember. And that is why they are truly great. The stars shimmered above, distant and eternal. Across the galaxy, civilizations continued their work, unaware of the quiet guardians among them. And somewhere silently, the last blade rested, a promise, a memory, and a testament to humanity's choice. Elias walked beneath the twin moons of Karsus 9, the weight of history on his shoulders, yet his heart light with purpose. Peace was his duty, and he carried it with wisdom, discipline, and care. Humanity had chosen this path deliberately, and the galaxy, whether it knew it or not, was safer for it. And as the night stretched into dawn, Lyra understood a simple, unshakable truth. The galaxy could underestimate humans all it wanted. Humans would remain vigilant, prepared, and peaceful, and if the need ever arose, they would act, not recklessly, not for pride, but with precision, skill, and the quiet mastery of a civilization that remembered its past to protect its future. The last blade rested quietly, humming softly in its case. And in its silence lay the power of a species that had chosen peace, yet never forgotten what it meant to fight for it.